Turn this light on, it'll be better. Hi everybody. We good on your end, Jess?
I don't see anything yet. Hold on. Oh, wait, here we go. Yeah.
Oh, I see some hearts.
Great setup. Setup looks good.
Good. I'm gonna start just with my tray here so that we can talk about stuff. Ah, there's some comments.
People like to get on and say hi.
Hi everybody. Lighting looks so good for you? It's fine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just to let everybody know we'll get started at 1.
We'll be getting started right at 1, which I think we have just a couple more minutes. Trying to read everyone's comments.
Yeah, everyone's just saying hi.
Yeah.
Little Jess, Dee.
Dee's the one who colored my mannequin.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Which she did a great job. Very nice job.
Kristen wants to know what we are learning today.
So solution styling, I'll go over a little bit more what I mean by that, but basically coming up with ways to style the hair without using heat, which can be damaging, or just addressing situations where people have specific needs for their hair and either not being able to put heat on it, or maybe they're not very good with using a curling iron or other heated engineering.
Dee says she misses her station.
She knows that. She noticed I'm using her station. Yeah. It was the best, I think, with the white background, and at first I was trying to get that Ethernet connection so it was closest to the router.
Yeah. Well, your connection's pretty clear, which is good.
Good. Yeah, that was another thing too. I figured being closest to the router would get the best connection since it wasn't able to connect.
It's helpful.
Yeah. I'm excited. This is fun.
Marcus says, hi Eli, congrats on your nomination.
Thank you. Marcus was an old buddy I used to work with.
No, Marco.
Oh, Marco.
Marco.
Oh, perfect.
Mhm.
Yes, the team is so supportive. I got a couple messages this morning wishing me good luck on my live video. So nice to I went back and I was just kind of rewatching some of the older ones that we started off with back at the beginning of April. Just cool. It's just nice to be able to just go back and rewatch them whenever you want, because I know some of them I was had my earbuds in and I was doing house stuff and listening. So to actually go back and review those is really, really nice. It's way more beneficial than just sitting in on a class and then trying to retain everything that you just saw.
Right. It lives forever on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you're all set. It's 1 o'clock.
Perfect. All right, great. Thank you everyone for joining me. My name's Eli Mancha. I am a Keune Academy Trainer with Keune, and on the other line you're going to hear Miss Jessica Mills' voice. She is our VP of Education and Shows. So she's going to be helping to feed me the questions you guys have and keep us on track with timing and everything. So I'm excited about today. I wanted to first start off with explaining a little bit about the name of the live video that we're doing, which is Solution Styling. The reason why I chose that name is because there's plenty of times that our clients can't use heat on their hair, or they have sensitive hair based off of whatever situation they have. And whether it be maybe that their hair is overly processed, or they might have sensitive color on their hair, bright reds, pastel tones, the intense, vibrant, direct dyes that we use today. Those are all really sensitive to heat, so they can cause the color to fade if you're using a blow dryer, a flat iron, a curling iron, or even just the case that some clients aren't really good with styling their own hair. I know that I have plenty of clients that all the time, no matter how many times I've worked with them and try to give them advice on how to work with their heated engineering, they just struggle with it. So to have an option to be able to add that texture or this like lived-in organic type of texture to the hair without putting the heat on the hair is something that I think is really beneficial. And then also I just like to come up with quick, easy ways to approach different styling. This is something that's simple, it's easy, it's inexpensive. Most of the supplies that we're using you should already have at home, and they're all reusable, so it's not like you have to repurchase it every time that you do this type of textured look on your hair. And then we're going to follow up with a little bit of a really quick 3-section styling technique to throw that texture or that wave that we've created up a little bit and do something like a modern fun style for the summer. So let's get started a little bit. I want to talk about the supplies that we're going to need. Very simple. All you need is these little makeup sponges here. So these are actually little makeup triangles. If you take them apart, they're like a little triangle. Very inexpensive. I bought like a pack of 92 of these for $3 at Target. But the sponges are great because they're soft. So when you actually are sleeping on these, then it's way more comfortable than any other type of a roller or set that you might put in your hair. The other thing you're going to use is just a standard washcloth. So I cut these already, but this is your standard. If I put 2 of these halves together, then you have 1 full standard washcloth. I just cut them down the center. You don't have to cut them down the center. The reason why I choose to is because you get more cloth out of it. I bought these also at Target for $3 for a pack of 6. So cutting them in half gives me 12 actual pieces to actually wrap around the hair. Keeping in mind that, if you didn't cut them in half, there would be more material, so the size of your curl pattern might be slightly larger. And then that being said, if you wanted a tighter curl, you could go with no sponge in the middle. You could break these in half and do half of a sponge. No sponge in the middle is going to be similar to your old rag set. So this is really just a modern take on that old rag set, which I remember my mom setting her hair in rags when I was younger, and I thought that was pretty interesting that she was able to create that much curl with that effect. And rag sets have been around forever. This is not anything new that I've created. I just tried to adapt it to more modern styles. Now I actually developed this technique about 8 years ago or so, maybe a little longer. I think it was like 2011. And I did it when the Flatiron Curl was really popular. And this was something that a lot of clients were really struggling with, was the Flatiron Curl and how to do it, especially on themselves. I can't imagine trying to do Flatiron Curls on myself. It seems hard. So I wanted to come up with something that kind of mocked that type of a curl. So working with the sponge creates a center that is kind of square, which mocks that Flatiron Curl. So all you're going to do is put the sponge right in the center and basically just kind of candy wrapper that into a little section here. And then you're going to wrap the hair around here and then tie the ends around the hair. So let's go ahead and move forward with that. I'm going to bring my mannequin stand over. Here's our little demo model here. And, all of this is going to be kind of trial and error. Something that I always recommend to a client when you're doing this at home is maybe practice a couple sections at home when you have nothing going on. Sleep in it overnight, see how the effect is. Because everyone's hair texture is different, everyone's density is different. People's hair react differently to encouraged curls. So people who naturally have wave or texture in their hair, this is something that's going to take a lot easier than somebody who has really maybe coarser hair that's really straight. So just kind of keep in mind that product choice and then application of this technique is going to vary depending on density and texture that you have. So those are things that are really important, and maybe, like I said, do trial and error before you set yourself a full set trying to create something for the next day. So keeping in mind that we don't want to take too big of a section, I kind of work with a general rule of thumb like I do with my heated engineering. If this is about 1 inch to 1.25 inches, then that's about the size of section that I want, maybe slightly larger or slightly smaller depending on the density. How are we doing? Any questions or anything so far?
Not yet. Could you maybe bring her a little closer to your camera?
Is that better?
Hold on. It takes a second because of the delay. Go ahead, I'll let you know.
Okay. So all I'm going to do is take a section here right at the bottom. I like to start in the back and the bottom. And this is just a way to add a little bit of texture to the ends. This is not gonna create those perfect ringlet curls, which we're not seeing a lot of today anyway. So don't worry too much if you're doing this at home on yourself about your sections being permanent, and don't worry too much about your sections being perfectly flush to the head or super tight, because you can use bobby pins to kind of secure those a little bit better. And bobby pins, here, let me just go ahead and start a section here. So we take a little section here, and you want to try to create your sections to end up falling on base. And what I mean by that is when I'm wrapping this, I start wrapping the hair around first. So the same way I would do like a crokinole curl is you're working on the base of the section first and then wrapping those ends around to the end. But you kind of want to have your elevation a little bit high with the rag, and then when you finalize that wrap, you end up right on section. So for consumers that are watching that aren't hairstylists, what I mean by on section is that you want the rag to end up right to the center of where your section is, as opposed to dragging and hanging a little bit lower than where your section is. So once you get that wrapped and it's kind of on base, which is where you want it. And now I've done this set on damp hair, I've done it on dry hair. Like I said earlier, it just really depends on how well you think your hair is going to accept the wave or the curl. If you have hair that's more resistant, then I would recommend doing it on slightly damp. Now don't do it on wet. You want to make sure the hair is at least 80% dry. I would recommend 80, even 90% dry. You only need a little bit of moisture in there to really get this set to take, because you're going to be sleeping on it overnight. And then you're going to also back it up with a little bit of product. Product-wise, what I set my model or my mannequin head with was a little bit of the soft mousse. So this is from the Keune style line. Can you see that okay? Let's see if I go closer. There we go. So the Keune soft style, the soft mousse is gonna be like giving me a good hold and volume factor, but not be overwhelming. I don't want anything super, super aggressive because I wanna be able to separate these sections, kind of air it out and not have too much product feel on the hair. So I set my second mannequin head with a little bit of this, slightly damp. It was probably 90% dry, and then just let that process overnight or let it sit overnight. Now what's great about this is that you're using washcloths and these makeup sponges. So once you get this entirely set all over the head, it's basically like a giant pillow. I've actually done this on brides. I've done this for a photo shoot. And what I thought was great is that, like I said, the brides can sleep on it all night and not worry about it. But a lot of times, especially today, a lot of brides want this like kind of looser, more natural looking wave, but they want it to last all day long. And throwing those waves or curls in with your curling iron the morning of is not going to give you the longevity that you would get from having a set in your hair overnight. So I've convinced a couple brides that I think this is the best approach for what they're looking for, and they come in the night before, I'd set them, and then they'd go home that night. That's not the funnest look to go home in. You have basically a bunch of washcloths around your head, but I think that, we do what we can to look our best for our biggest days, right? Okay, so let's get a couple more of these sections in. So you can see once I get this wrapped in there, it's kind of dangly a little bit. If you want to make sure that you get a little bit of a tighter curl all the way to the root, you can kind of twist that up a little bit and use a bobby pin. Bobby pins very easily go through these washcloths, which is why I recommend the washcloths, because they're easy to work with. You can wash them afterwards. They're easy to cut. But just taking this bobby pin and going through the washcloth and the hair really helps it to kind of stabilize that a little bit more. And since you're doing it not on the scalp, it's not going to hurt when you're sleeping on these.
So Eli, question, could you take the washcloths and cut them into quarters, like 4, so it's not as thick, or do you always recommend
you wouldn't be able,
washcloth?
You could have the option of tying it. So you need the length of the actual washcloth to actually candy wrapper and have some excess on the ends here. See how you have these ends? And that allows you to wrap it. So the question was, could I take these washcloths down and break them into quarters instead of halves? You could, but then you're gonna probably be forced to use bobby pins, more bobby pins, and you're probably going to be more at risk of being stabbed with your bobby pins while you're sleeping throughout the night. So I think the candy wrapper and tying is the best way to not have to use as much bobby pins and stuff to support it. But yeah, you could, absolutely. You know, I mean, anything that I demo or that I develop or create, I mean, I always encourage people to find other ways to adapt it to whatever they think makes sense. I don't think there's any wrong way to do anything as long as you get the outcome you're looking for and what you're doing makes sense while you're doing it. So yeah, play around with it. I mean, I played around with this technique quite a bit, using other stuff. Something I didn't mention earlier, because when I first developed this, what I would do is I would set everything around the sides and the back, but on top, the trend at the time was hardly any curl at the root. It was more just kind of a looser wave down at the ends. So in the crown area, I wouldn't even use the makeup sponges. I would use a full washcloth that was uncut and use a buffing block, a nail buffing block. So this still has that squared shape. It's still soft to sleep on, still very inexpensive. And you just put it down into the center. I'm sorry, 1 second, let me grab a washcloth. So you would just grab your washcloth, lay it down. You set this in the center like that. And again, you're just kind of candy wrapping that. And then you would, wherever your section be, which something this big, I wouldn't recommend on mid-length hair. I would say this is gonna be more for if you don't really want a lot of bend or in the crown area, or if somebody has really long hair that can support a looser wave. Because this is a pretty good size wave here. So we'll start with the crown here. Let me see if I can turn her a little bit. Over direct that a little bit. Pull that down. You have your two longer ends. And so you can see that's a much bigger section for a set than the smaller makeup sponges. So that, I think also too, being so large, I would probably bobby pin that just to make sure it stays. Let's go ahead. I'll use a larger bobby pin. So I actually, it's so funny. I had a model that I was doing a shoot for in New York when I first developed this, and I wasn't even sure if it was going to work on her. But I said, "Come in the night before, and I want to set your hair into this set for the shoot." And she was an Asian girl, beautiful hair, like beautiful straight hair, and it was like down the middle of her back. And I was really nervous, but I was kind of like at the same time excited because I was challenging this technique. I was like, let's see if this is actually gonna work on her. So I had her come in the night before, I washed her hair, I put some product in, I blow dried it, about 80, 90%. I think I did 90% because I was really nervous about it actually drying because her hair was so dense. And then I set her hair in this, and this is in New York at this like studio downtown, like I think it was like on Broadway. And she had to leave with this whole set in, and I love a real professional model who actually can work anything, because she walked out of there like she had her hair done professionally at a salon, and she was just strutting like she normally would down a runway, but with this crazy updo in her hair, or not updo, but this crazy rag set in her hair. But I really appreciated that. I was like, wow, she looks great. Even when she came back the next day and met me at the salon for the actual shoot, she walked in as if nothing, as if she had her hair fully done, and I think that that's great. So, I mean, not all of our clients are going to be that confident, but I thought that kind of sticks in my head as a memorable experience that I've done with this set. And then when I released it, I was really happy with the effect. It was perfect. It gave me that loose kind of wave that I wanted, and it was really like put in there really well. So it lasted throughout the entire shoot, and I played with her hair multiple times, changing the look. So I do stand behind this technique. I think it's great. It's easy to work with, and most importantly, it's safe for your hair. Okay, so we're gonna do another one here in the back. So again, I just took the makeup sponge right in the center. Just kind of pull that section up a little bit. Now I'm doing this on dry hair. I haven't used any product in these because I'm not really gonna pull these out and style it afterwards. I have one that's preset already. But what I would choose to do is, depending on how resistant the hair is, use either like the soft set spray from the style line. The soft set spray, let's see if I can get it. There we go. And this is just a very soft working spray. The set's gonna kind of work for you, so this is just kind of help give it a little bit extra hold and back it up. And then, like I said earlier, you know, you can use the soft mousse, which the soft mousse doesn't have to be on damp hair. I've used this before on dry hair, and just to kind of re-dampen the hair a little bit. I wouldn't use an excessive amount, but just enough to give some extra hold to the hair. So it just really depends on how resistant your hair is going to be and what type of effect you're trying to create. So again, you can see this last section is a little bit wobbly here like that. So you can twist that up a little, grab a bobby pin, and you really just bobby pin that right into the washcloth. Okay. Should we do a couple more sections of this, or should we move on to my pre-wrapped one?
Let's do some more. This is really cool to watch.
Okay, let's do it. So there's no really rhyme or reason to my sectioning here. I just kind of bricklay my sections up, or work my way from the bottom up. I think working from the back forward is a little bit easier. If you're trying to do this at home and you get everything wrapped around the face first, it's going to be almost impossible for you to see and grab in the back and get that comfortably. So I think working in the back and working your way forward. If you're struggling with getting your sections in the back, maybe recruit your daughter, your friend, your boyfriend or husband, or whoever you're staying at home with. You know, and that's the other thing that, you know, no heat styling can really work for us as stylists going back to work with these crazy times is, you know, everything's going to be a little bit different. And I know some states aren't allowing you to do blow dries just because of it blowing everything around. So this is something that you could set your clients into and send them home with their damp hair, and then they could take it out later or the next day and have a nice wavy curly finish.
So Eli, can you, we have a question. How do you get the ends in? I think because they can't see how you're securing the ends.
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question. How do I get the ends in? I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit of soft set spray. So I start with my section and I kind of pull it upwards a little bit like that. So I get over direct that. Then I grab my piece. It's kind of hard for you guys to see. So I hold on to the ends the entire time and I start wrapping at the base. And then I'm wrapping those ends around, all the way around, until I can't wrap them anymore. And I want to make sure that the ends are kind of straighter, and then I do a roll underneath to kind of tuck those ends in. Is that easier to see? Okay, so now you have your two ends here left, and then I'm just going to wrap those and tie it. Now, I don't recommend like you trying to pull this as tight as you possibly can. I think it's better to have a little bit of loose hang and then either bobby pin it if it's too loose. Because if you're pulling it super, super tight, I feel like you're at risk of like crunching that hair inside of where the rag is tied. And that would create more of a irregular, crinkly effect than it would an actual like wave going on. So I think that like I tie it just enough so it'll hold. And then if I need a little more support, that's when I go in with a bobby pin. Was that a little easier to see, Jessica?
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is kind of, you know, I know Jessica Bartolucci, one of my co-educators, did a really nice no heat styling video for us not that long ago. So this is kind of piggybacking off of that. I think that, you know, especially right now, today, you know, we're not either able to go to a salon and get our hair styled for whatever reason, for what we need to. So having options or solutions to, you know, create styles at home that are a little easier and a little bit more consumer friendly. Or if you are a stylist, having other options to offer your clients other than the heated engineering or the blow drying that we were able to do in the past. Okay, here's my section. We'll do a little bit of the light working spray, which is soft set spray here. Grab our washcloth, put a square in the center. It was funny, when my mom did this, I think I was in junior high, and I had some length to my hair. It wasn't like long. Gosh, I don't want to say the year, but anyway, I actually tied my hair into rags too, which was really funny because I just was curious and I wanted to see what was going to happen. So I had some length on top, maybe like 4 inches of length on top, and I tied it in rags. But it was ridiculous. It was such a tight curl. It basically gave me like a blue rod perm effect. And it wasn't what I wanted, but hey, it was my first attempt at trying something like this. So if anything, it gave me my inspiration to figure out a solution to not create such a tight curl on myself. So, you know, when you're working on this around the face, I think that it might get a little more challenging with, you know, if you have layers or a fringe. I mean, a fringe you don't really want wave on anyway, so I would say leave those fringe areas out, but the layers around the face or any framing that you would have, you know, sometimes they're not going to stay in the rag or they're not going to fit, which is fine. You can just wrap them around the outside or, you know, whatever the case being. Usually those shorter layered pieces you don't want a lot of curl on anyway, because either they're going to fall out and look really great with whatever style you create, or you just don't want them super tight curl anyway, because then they'll just be much shorter than everything else and it just won't balance with everything else. So all right, so let's go another section here, pull this up. You know, something else this is great for is not just taking somebody with straight hair and adding curl in, but let's say you have naturally curly hair. And I know people with naturally curly hair are always looking for ways to manipulate their curl pattern, you know, whether loosen it up a little bit or soften it, or just in general control frizz. So any type of a wrapping or a set on curly hair is going to help to control frizz and create more definition. So this is something that somebody with a really tight curl, I could see them putting a light gel or some mousse in on damp hair and using this to kind of stretch out their curl pattern and create a little bit of a wider curl pattern.
Amen.
I know Jessica has curly hair naturally, which I love it. I mean, it's funny, when you were on the Zoom meeting with us last time and you had your natural curls, I love it. I love big curly hair. I think it looks great. So, but I know we always, you know, whatever we have, we always want what we don't have. And I think that, you know, if I had a big tight curly afro, which is what I always wanted, then I probably would want to have smooth, sleek, straight hair, but but that's always been my fantasy. I always wanted to have a big afro. I think it would be great. And then my curly haired clients think I'm crazy, but okay. We'll do one more section here. Let me see, okay. And you can see my sections are, you know, they're about 2 to 2.5 inches, 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches, just depending. But she's got pretty low density, so I'm not too worried about it being too much for the actual set or the wrap to handle. Let's go ahead and do a little hairspray. What about you guys? Is there anybody out there that has their own rag set experience, or maybe something they remember their mom or grandmother working with this that they'd like to share?
Let's give them a minute. I saw my hair going away. Somebody's doing their hair with it right now.
Oh, really? I love that. Hey, no better time than the present, right?
Yep. So how long did you left the one that you did yesterday? You let it dry overnight?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the best results you're gonna get is sleeping in it or like letting it set overnight. So what I did last night is I treated my mannequin the same way that I would a bride coming in to be set for her next day. So I washed it. I washed it with the Care Absolute Volume shampoo and conditioner. And then I put a little bit of the soft mousse. Put a little bit of the soft mousse in there. Not a lot. I don't want a lot of product in there because this is just a set. So once I take it out, I'm going to be playing with it and styling it and using more product then. So I don't want to overload it with a lot of product. So I put just a little bit of the soft mousse in there and blow dried that to about 90%. And then I use just a little bit of this offset spray as I wrap my sections in there. And then I let that sit overnight. And then this morning I kind of double checked one just to make sure. I was like, please make sure that, because I haven't done this one in a while. I was playing around with it and practicing it with it over the weekend because I knew I was going to be doing this. But yeah, I let it sit overnight and it looks like it took pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead.
Looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab that one. Let's get rid of this messy lady over here. So I could not stop laughing last night after I sat this and finished it because, ladies, if you haven't scared your boyfriend or your husband yet, throw a mask on and set your hair into these rags and you will definitely be creating a new look that they haven't seen. So, but I was laughing because it's so ridiculous how funny it is, but it's such an effective and unique way to set the hair and a comfortable way. So imagine just sleeping on all these rags. What I did is I have two different colored washcloths here. As you can see, I have some of these green ones and then I have these gray ones. So I kind of alternated a couple different wraps. So I did one with half washcloth and the double makeup sponge inside. And then I did some with without the washcloth cut in half. So all the gray ones, most of the gray ones are full washcloths with the double inside, so they'll be a slightly larger. So, you know, just keeping in mind that variations of curls or texture within the hair, I think creates a lot more interest. You don't want everything perfectly exactly the same curl pattern and set the same way. So some of them I actually alternated the direction of the way I'm curling it. I'd say for the most part throughout the back though, most of those were just curled underneath. As I got around the face, I tried to work it away from the face a little bit more just because it's more of a modern finish to wave and curl these days. But here is, since decolored her. Once I pull these down, you can see this beautiful coloring that Dee did with the Color Chameleon. We'll go ahead and start in the back.
You're at 30.
What's that?
You're at 30.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to start right here in the bottom. Trying to feel if I have any bobby pins. I did. Go ahead and release. And you can see how much of a curl I got there. Now that's a pretty tight curl and it's a pretty good section. So once I get all these out, I'll go through and kind of separate those and break it up. So let's go ahead and start pulling these down. This is the funnest part. It's taking all this down. I know we haven't had whole lots of opportunities these days to get dressed up and you know, make our hair look extra fancy, but there's definitely reasons. You know, I know a lot of people are doing like some Zoom meetings and gatherings and what do you call it, happy hours. I know my dad and my stepmom, they just did a drive-by graduation last weekend. So there was like a police escorted parade of cars that drove by this house and they all honked and pretty much threw presents out the window. All right. So the ones that don't come out easier are the ones that I bobby pinned. And then once you pull it out, that curl is there. I mean, it's so set in there. It's going to be way more resilient than a curling iron curl would be. Let's get a bobby pin. This is making me happy. Because the curls are there.
The form is really strong on the curl.
I know, right? Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So, but like I said, you know, on yourselves at home, for whoever's trying this out right now, you know, it might take 1 or 2 times for you to get the right product usage and maybe the right size of sectioning to get the best results. Okay. So what Dee did with the color chameleon, she was telling me, is that she used all of the primary colors directly, more so around the face and then this mohawk sections around the top. So she has kind of rainbowed that with the main primary colors in the color chameleon, and then she went through and just kept diluting them and diluting them. So she kind of has a variation of pastel tones with some vibrant tones, which I think looks great. I'm really excited to get this removed and styled. And then of course I had to do something in my hair, so whatever color chameleon I had left over, I put a little bit of green in there. All right.
So, you know, at salon speed, Eli, how long does it take you to set this for somebody?
You know, if I'm doing it for like a bride or something, I'm really going to take my time, just the same way as if I was finishing her hair for her wedding day. But I mean, if I'm doing the actual washing, the blow dry, and setting everything, I would say maybe 45 minutes to an hour. If I'm doing it on dry hair and the hair is already dry and I'm just going in and adding a little bit of product and setting it, I would say you could easily do it in 30 minutes. But that's me working on somebody else. If you're doing it on yourself at home for the first time, it might take you an hour just because you're not used to doing it, and you might need a little bit of extra time and patience for the back.
So like if you're doing this for a bride,
yeah,
would you include the night before set in with the updo pricing?
That's a great question. So Jessica asked me if I was doing this on a bride, would I include the set in the price of her finished up style for the wedding day? And yes, I do. It would probably be, you know, my average rate would be higher, an extra whatever, $50 for her to come in the night before and to set her, or whatever it be, depending on the hair, really. You know, depending on the density of the hair and the length of the hair. But, you know, bridal hair is expensive, and, you know, it takes a lot of time, and you're going to location most of the time. So, yeah, absolutely. I would definitely charge more because it's taking time out of my books. You know, they're going to come in and be my last appointment for the day, and absolutely, I would book it as a set, you know, or as like either a finish, as I would do in this, or like an extra styling, you know, upcharge. I wouldn't charge her like a full updo because I'm not really giving her a full updo. I'm just kind of setting the updo. So, you know, I think my average full updo prices are around $85, whereas I might charge her like $60 to set it.
And, you know, share with everybody where you're from so that they kind of understand, you know, your pricing based on where you live.
Sure. I live in Chicago, downtown in the city. I own a salon here, and I work full-time behind the chair in my salon. So, yeah, I mean, I'm in the city, so the price points here in Chicago are much higher than they are in other parts of Illinois or the States. But, yeah, bridal hair is, it's no joke. It's good money. I have plenty of hairstylist friends who have went and do only bridal parties. They're like bridal specialists. You can see this beautiful rainbow color around the face now, a little bit.
That looks cool.
All right, last one. I'm really happy. These all took really well.
Okay, so I have another question. So what if you
Sure.
get in a situation where you've taken this down, you have a couple that didn't do so well? Do you just iron it?
So in this situation, it doesn't really matter so much because I'm going to put it up, and the updo or the style I'm going to create is really not any of the waves or curls are going to be showing. So it wouldn't really matter all that much to me. If I was doing this for a bride, I'm always going to have my tools with me. And I'm sorry to back up. The question was, if I were doing this on a bride, let's say, and I pulled it out and there were a couple sections that weren't quite the way I wanted them or didn't have a good curl pattern, I usually have my tools with me to back me up in case of a situation like that. So I would just go in and just curl those pieces. Unless it was a situation where she couldn't have heat on her hair. You know, your overly processed bleach and tones that, of course, you know, came to you overly processed. It wasn't your fault. But, you know, we have those situations, those clients that their ends just really can't support any amount of heat on it. You know, in that situation, then I would hope that the curls that didn't take that well were able to be, you know, hidden. And that's why I think when I'm doing the set on a bride especially, I really like to take a lot of time with making sure that those ends are perfectly wrapped in there. And making sure, especially around the perimeter, around the edges of the hairline, that those curls are going to be have the best effect whenever you release them, so that you can use those to, you know, mask any areas throughout the inside. But yeah, I mean, in a normal situation, if I was doing a wedding party or something, then I would just make sure I had my curling iron there to back up and help support some curls that maybe didn't take as well as others. Good question. Okay, so now, it's funny, her hair is actually down to here, but it's got so much wave that it's so much tighter now. So I'm just gonna go through and grab my little friend here. Sorry, I have a huge amount of these washcloths. Just when you think you have everything right in front of you, here it is. My little friendly tool. Everybody has their little, I think, styling best friends. I like anything with a tail for photo shoots or bridal parties or anything like that, because you can just use that to break up this wave. So I'm just using my tail, going through, kind of breaking this up. Before I start getting too handsy with the hair a little bit, I like to add another product that's going to help to, I guess, complement the work that I'm doing with the style as opposed to work against me. So I'm going to use a little bit of the Frizz Serum. Let's see if I can get that to where it's clear. The Frizz Serum is just like a light polisher. This is going to be high shine, low hold. But as I'm working my hands through the hair, I don't want to create frizz. And I want to make sure that I'm instilling shine as opposed to making the hair more dusty. So I want to use a product that's going to give me a little bit of shine and allow me to prevent frizz. This is, you know, it can be a heavy product if you use too much. I don't want to say that as a negative thing, but I'm just saying, like, it's a shine product, so it can have some weight to it. So for something like an updo, you don't want to have any weight onto it. So you want to make sure that when you're putting it, you're going to distribute the product evenly on both sides of your hands. So emulsify it really well. I recommend on both sides of your hands, so that as you're running your hands through the hair, you're distributing it more evenly, and also just helps to dissipate the product a little bit more, so you don't have too much in one area. Okay, so back to my little candy brush here. We'll pull this out. So working my way around to break all this up. Okay, so now we're going to break this up into 3 sections. I start off with like a little triangle section in the top. So we're going to work from the temple let's take her off here. So I'm going to work, here's her face, temple to temple and straight back to the crown. So just kind of like a little triangle here. front last. Now we have everything below here, and we're going to do a parting right behind the ear, right up into the crown area. Okay, so basically like a concave parting from behind each ear, making sure that you still have some hair down in the nape. And around the face here, temple to temple. Okay. Clip that last section out. Thought I had everything right by me, and then I move it all. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to start with this very bottom section here. I was looking at this mannequin last night and I'm like, what color bobby pins do I use on her?
Right?
She's got every color in here, so I think I'm safe with any color. Okay, so I'm going to drag all this up to the top here, as high as I can, just up to right on the occipital bone pretty much. And all I'm doing is kind of like top knotting this, but it's going to be a back knot because it's more on the back of the head. You don't want this perfect. This is more of a organic type of the up style, so I don't think you want these perfect little buns. A little bobby pin.
After you pin that, can you show what you did?
Just a little bit of a low bun at the high end of the nape, or just below the occipital bone. So now I have one more section that's about this wide from the temple to the back of the ear, the bottom of the ear, and it wraps all the way around. And I'm going to use all of that and pull to the center again.
Everyone's talking about the color. They're trying to guess what it reminds them of.
What's that?
The color. Everyone's loving the color, so great job, Dee.
Yes. I can't take credit for the my stylist Dee colored this mannequin for me. She knew I was doing this video, and I hit her up because I knew that she had a long-haired mannequin head, and she was super excited not only to let me borrow the mannequin head, but to color it. So I had all the color chameleons shipped to her, and she had a blast playing with the color and coloring this mannequin head. So thank you very much, Dee. She is copy of a copy on Instagram. And she does a lot of these vibrant rainbow-inspired hair colors. Okay, now we have one section left here, which is that triangle section on top.
You're at 15 minutes.
Perfect. Boy, the time does go by fast, huh?
Uh-huh, it does, doesn't it? When you have time flies, you're having fun.
Yeah. Okay, so one last, let me look at the front here. Little section here. And she had such fun hair color. I wanted to do kind of a funner updo to kind of complement the color. So I did this little 3-bun. I think this look really became popular in Star Wars. And I know a lot of the girls were wearing that. But we're gonna modify it right afterwards. I'm using my camera as the mirror.
It's different, right?
It's totally different, but you know, I mean, we adapt. We're human. We find ways to adapt and make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing too fancy, just 3 simple little buns here, kind of mocking that little Star Wars creation. Me personally, I would probably go through and maybe pull up some areas, tighten up some areas. But you know, this is more of like a fun festival hairstyle. If you're looking for something a little more commercial, or maybe you're not a Star Wars fan, you don't have to have these like separated buns. We can always take a bobby pin and kind of combine those together. So I'm just gonna take a bobby pin, open it up. I'll grab a piece of this bun, a piece of that bun, and combine them. Okay, let's get another small bobby pin. Open it up, let's grab a piece of this bun, a piece of that bun, and drag it up even higher. So you're combining those. And then just start distressing these buns. And let's do something a little more dramatic. Or not dramatic, I guess this is maybe the color makes it dramatic. But something not so Star Wars inspired, I guess I could say. I feel like when I look at the camera, it's not as clear as what I'm seeing here, but it's all right. Let's pull a little bit of this out. You can always pull. But basically, just have fun with it. Once you have all that texture in there, you know, I feel like when you have some amount of bend or texture on the ends of the hair, throwing the hair up, it's not always going to look good, but it's easy to throw it up and create a nice, easy style by having that texture in there and doing something a little bit fun. All I'm doing is going in and kind of tightening up a little bit around the sides. I'd say less is more with bobby pins. I feel like sometimes I see updos happening and it's like 75 bobby pins in there. So I think it's better just to find the areas that need the most support. Pull out a little bit of volume here. Cool. And then obviously you don't have to do, this is just a 3-section approach to any type of an up style. I know that, you know, if you wanted to take that triangle section on the front here like I did, the first section, and instead of breaking this into 2 horizontal sections, you could part down the center in the back and maybe twist those outsides in and create a messy bun effect, and then just take the top and add some volume and pull that into that. So, you know, there's just so many different ways to create different looks like this. I could take this more extreme and make it really like a mohawk if I wanted to go more extreme, more, you know, editorial or like runway type hair. So just have fun with it. I think that just having the 3-section approach is, I'm a big fan of systems. So like I feel like a lot of times we get overwhelmed with sometimes the simplest thing, and just having, okay, let's just break this down into 3 sections, and that way I'm not working with all my hair at once and getting overwhelmed. So that's something that I try to share with my clients sometimes. It's like they get frustrated easily because they're working with all this hair. So just taking it step by step and simplifying it and having a solid approach. There's no, there's no magic to this 3-section updo. It's just a matter of me having a good approach to work with in a foundational attempt, or an attempt that has a foundation to it. So, any other questions or anything?
No, it's
No?
great. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Here, I'll take her off. It was funny, I had like a little bit of concealer. I was covering up the little bit of stains around her hairline, but you can hardly see them on the camera. Perfect.
You got about 5 minutes.
Well, I guess we're going to finish a little bit early. Thank you guys very much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy all of the Keune videos that we've been having. They've been incredible. The team is super excited to do them. I've been enjoying them myself, and very, very educational and beneficial. So go back and watch some of the other live videos that we've done up until now, and we'll continue to do these live videos with Keune North America, and I'm really excited to be a part of all this. I appreciate you guys for sticking around and watching, and hope to see you soon. Do I sign out now?
Hit end. Did you hit end?